Hey y'all, welcome to lesson 3 of your first year of drum lessons. So the first 2 lessons are kind of an information dump, right? We did a lot of stuff in the first 2 weeks. This week, this part of the lesson is going to be a little shorter, a little less information heavy. We're going to do some playing, but this week is largely, it's almost like a breather in our process. There'll still be some new information and some new patterns, but we've got our basic technique, and we've got our basic rhythmic groupings. So we're going to kind of let those sink in. Okay. Having said that, we are going to learn a new music theory concept, and what we're going to talk about is dynamics. And dynamics is just volume, right? It's the volume for a musician. There's an old joke about drummers and dynamics. I heard it from Peter Erskine, but I have a feeling he heard it from someone else, because it's an old joke. But the joke is, drummers will say, dynamics, what are you talking about? I'm playing as loud as I can, right? And it's really very important as a drummer to be able to play loud, sure. This is a big, powerful instrument behind me, but because it's a big, powerful instrument, it's almost more important to be able to play quietly, okay? Drums can very easily get out of hand if you're not careful. Most of the time, when a band gets complaints about being too loud, the drummer gets blamed whether or not the drummer is actually the one that's too loud. Okay, so it's nice to be able to be the quietest one in the band when you need to. Okay, so what's the concept? So a copy of this will be, you can download this in the doobly-doo, but here's the quick, simple, just introductory level, okay? We're going to talk about 3 levels today. There are more than this, but I don't want to talk about more than this yet. We've got an F, which stands for forte, which means loud. We've got an MF, which stands for mezzo forte, which means medium loud. And then we have a P for piano, which means soft. Coming up with 3 levels at first, reliably, is a challenge, okay? So when we play our exercise today, we're not even going to worry about all 3. We're just going to do 2, okay? But first, let's see what 3 levels might look like, okay? So if I play soft, and because I'm only dealing with 3 levels, I'm going to go for extremes, okay? So if I go for soft, I try and play as soft as I can. Right, it wouldn't surprise me if you can't even hear that. Okay, so soft. Now medium. Medium, mezzo forte, I always tell people that's the volume that you'd play if you weren't trying to play loud, you weren't trying to play soft, you're just kind of playing. Usually that's mezzo forte. Right? Sticks are just there, they're moving, I'm pushing them down, they're bouncing up, but there's no, I'm not really injecting a lot of energy into the sticks. It's almost the volume that the sticks would play themselves, right? I'm really not pushing for volume. And then loud, the drum pad isn't really going to show off these volume differences, but loud, right? So we've got those 3 volumes: soft, medium, and loud. Okay. Those are really important to work on as separate things. We're going to make that even easier though. Okay. You can do anything you want. You can do single stroke roll, double stroke roll, paradiddles at those 3 volumes. But the specific exercise I'm going to give you today, and again, this will be, you can download this. It's our 8s, so 8 on a hand, loud, and then soft. This little symbol here means repeat, and all of our exercises you should repeat over and 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 over. Okay, so get used to this little symbol for repeat because you'll see it a lot when you're working with exercises. Okay, so we're going to start off, and I'll put on the metronome so we have some timing support, but we'll do it nice and slow at first. I'm always scared to say try to play as loud as you can because students usually abuse that privilege. But for the forte, you want to play pretty loud, okay? Right, a nice snap. Really pulling with your fingers added to your wrist. Right, that's how you're going to get that volume. If you just use your wrist, you can, but you're going to wear yourself out. Okay, and if you're not snapping with either part, you bring the stick up high. Well, it's high, so it's a little louder, right? But right, that snap really pushes more momentum into the surface, and that just generates more volume. Okay, so let's throw in a metronome, nice and slow at first. How about 70? Okay, we're going to do loud and soft. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 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 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay. Make sense? So let's try that a little bit faster. Let's jump up to 90. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 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 and 4 and 1 and 2 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 1 and 2 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 3 and 4 and try 110. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1. Let's jump to 130 and see what happens. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 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 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 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 and 2 and 3 and 4 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and okay. We can go faster or slower than that too. Remember, you should be working with your metronome. So, a couple things I want to mention. That loud note, that's pretty much the technique we've been talking about, right? The first couple weeks, I didn't use this word for it, but we were basically making full strokes. Okay? And by that, I just mean a full motion down and up. Okay? For our quiet notes, we're now making what I think of as tap strokes. Okay? Just little taps. And taps, really quiet notes, actually require a little bit more control than the loud notes because you're going to get less help from the rebound, right? If you try to get the quiet notes to bounce, right, you can get a dribble very, very easily. Right? I'm holding on more in the front and I'm not holding on with my fingers. I'm just kind of, right? Okay. We don't want that at all. We want, right, a nice, very controlled, holding on loosely but firmly, right? So that when we have to play things like we have that control, right, at our fingertips. Ha, see what I did there? So take your time with these two volumes. Work on them separately if that helps. So just play quiet if that helps before you get to the eighths with the volume shifts. Okay? This is a super important place where we are right here. Getting the ability to play really those three levels, but especially loud and soft. Because we're kind of working at the extremes of our range at this point. And once you can play the extremes of your range, then we can play anywhere in the middle, right? Then it's just a matter of When I marched in drum corps, we used to call this 2 inches, and this was silly because it's not, but we'd call this 10 inches, right? 10 and 2. The 10 used to get exaggerated in my drum line, but that pretty much meant our top and our bottom, right? Right? So that's what we're going for. The you know, not this, not over the head or anything yet. We are going to talk about some bigger techniques, but not yet. Okay? So we're still working just the wrist and fingers and the snap, right? And then really quiet and controlled. Good? All right. So that's all we're going to talk about dynamics for today. I want to go over 5, 6, and 7 on the basic rudiment pattern sheet that we got last week. Okay, so these are now the double stroke roll and the paradiddles applied to the same rhythmic framework of eighth notes and 16th notes. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E. Last week, if you remember, we were doing the same thing in the first measure that we were doing in the second measure. We were just adding notes, right? I had my right hand or my left hand playing on the eighth notes, and then I just filled in the offbeat 16th notes, right, to get that 16th note pattern. 5, 6, and 7 work the exact same way, but the patterns are a little different. So 5 and 6, I'm going to be playing single notes in the first measure, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and this is number 5, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay, so it's 8 singles and then 8 doubles, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, if you can think of the doubles as one thing, that's going to be super helpful as we move forward. That takes a little practice to get used to, but when I'm playing a double stroke roll, I'm not thinking right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left. I'm thinking right, left, right, right, left, 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 right. And as it gets faster, I'm barely thinking that, right? So let's try that with the metronome. Let's slow back down. How about 70? 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. Speed that up a little bit. Let's go to 90. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3, 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 remember, it's totally cool to speed this up more gradually or more rapidly, right? If you're playing these at 150, awesome, cool. I'm doing this totally just to demonstrate. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2, 4 and 1 and a 2 and 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and That's fast enough. You get the idea. Let's slow it back down to 70, and let's do the left hand. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3, 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. Okay, 90. One and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2, 3 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and 1 and 110. One and two and three and four and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 4 and a 1 and 2, 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Okay. So again, I did 3 tempos that felt right for me right now, but you can start at 40, you could be going, like I say, 150, whatever, tempos work well for you, practice them there, okay? There's definitely no right tempos to be working these at. Remember, what are we going for? Keeping them steady, keeping them even, keeping good form, keeping good technique. Speed is the result of good technique, right? I'm going to say that over and over and over again because it's true, right? I've been playing for a very long time, and I still work on my technique and think about my technique and wonder about ways to improve my technique and think about, am I moving in the most ergonomically positive way. Ergonomically just means in a way that your body likes, right, naturally. So this is something to be thinking about the whole time you're working on any of these things, is how are you moving, especially when you're on the pad and we're working on exercises like this. Next week we're going to start working on note patterns, right? And then we're going to have more to think about than just repetitive patterns, and thinking about our technique is going to get a little bit more complicated in the stew, right? It's going to be more one of the things we're thinking about. So it's really important to, when you're working on exercises that are just technique or that are largely technique, where you can devote your full brain power to that you do, right? I referenced this before, but everything we're doing is cumulative, right? So if you get like a wobbly bottom of your building, right? If your technique is kind of wobbly, as we build up from there, the whole building is going to be very wobbly, right? So take your time now to get your technique as solid as you can, and you will be amazed at how much it helps as we go along. It will help you improve faster if you go slower now. Look up the word oxymoron. It's an oxymoron. It's counterintuitive, right? There's another one. Look up counterintuitive. It doesn't make sense, kinda, right? What do you mean I'll go faster if I go slower? What? But it's all about building that solid foundation, right? So it's not a race. We're not trying to get there as fast as we can. We're trying to get there as awesome as we can, right? Okay, so number 7 on our basic rudiment patterns. So why is there only one for paradiddles? This is paradiddles, right? Well, because paradiddles are basically ambidextrous. You can start this exercise with your left hand if you want. I made the judgment call. It wasn't super essential. So there you go. Just like in the previous ones, what is happening in the first measure is repeated in the second measure, but it is a little bit more obscure. Okay, so the first measure, eighth notes, double strokes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then the second measure, paradiddles, 16th notes, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. Well, the paradiddle, right, left, right. Right, does that make sense? So I'm still doing the doubles, but I'm filling in the 16th notes with the rest of the pattern of the paradiddle. Kind of sneaky. It's kind of cool. I like this one a lot. So let's go a little bit slower with this one, because this one's a little bit more stuff to think about. So let's go back down to 60. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and paradiddle, 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 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and paradiddle, 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 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and paradiddle, 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 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and paradiddle, 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 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and paradiddle, 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 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and paradiddle, 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 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and paradiddle, up to 80. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One, two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. And two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One, three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two, three, four, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two, three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. 100. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One, three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two, three, four, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two, four, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two, four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One, three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two, four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. Let's try 120 and see what happens. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two, four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two, four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two, four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two, four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. Let's try 140. Think we can do it? One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two, four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. One and two and three and four and paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. Whew! Tongue twister. I feel like an auctioneer there, that fast. Okay, so that is, last week we did 3 and 4, now we've done 5, 6, and 7. So now you have a way to work on the single stroke roll, 3 and 4, the double stroke roll, 5 and 6, and the paradiddle in a rhythmically more interesting way, and a way that if you use your metronome and if you keep the 8th notes and 16th notes steady, this should help you to get used to the patterns and also to gradually speed them up a little bit. Okay. Um, so that's going to wrap up what we're doing today. Like I said, we're kind of catching our breath a little from the first 2 weeks, which are like woohoo, crazy, lots of stuff, right? So since we're a little late this week, I'm going to talk a little bit about practicing, right? Everyone's favorite subject. So I'll tell you this: learning any physical dexterous skill requires repetition and dedication and consistency, okay? And when I was growing up, I always I joke that my drum instructors were these true drunk Irish guys, and they kind of were, and they would scream at us and throw stuff at us, and I'm forever grateful to them, right? Because they kind of scared me to death, but they also really pushed me very hard, and I needed that when I was that age, right? I am not that kind of instructor. It would be difficult for me to throw anything at you through the camera, right? But I will tell you the truth, and the truth is that to get good, whatever the heck that means, to really get good at something requires at least several times in your life where you become obsessed with that thing, okay? Maybe this really is your first year of drum set lessons. Maybe you got a drum set for Christmas and you're just excited and you're plowing through and you're practicing maybe 15 minutes 3 times a week. You know what? Okay, right? I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that that's enough for you to, become a professional drummer based on 15 minutes 3 times a week. But if that's the way that you're, getting used to the instrument and getting into it, okay, that's cool, right? At the end of the day, drums are super fun, right? And so you're either going to play them or you're not, and you're either going to practice or you're not. And it really lies on you. And if you're a youngin', if you're 8, if you're 12, if you're 15, right? Discipline is going to be a thing that you have to figure out how to do, right? We're not born disciplined creatures. We have to figure that out. And so keep a schedule, keep a logbook, use Google Calendar, put Post-it notes on your door, leave your drumsticks by the door, whatever. Figure out some way to just get in the habit of practicing if you want to. Again, I'm going to tell you the truth, but I'm not going to guilt you, and I'm not going to shame you, and I'm not going to yell at you, right? This is totally your bag. I'm doing this because I love to do this, and I want to share this, and I hope y'all get something out of it. But I'm doing this because I love this, and I hope that you get something out of it. But that's all I can do, right? To the extent that we have a relationship, the rest of it is on you. So, a nice rule of thumb, my recommendation at first is a half hour a day, every day. I have not always been great about the everyday thing. So if you say, well, a half hour a day is rough, but I can do an hour a day after school every day, and then I'm taking the weekends off. Okay, maybe that's all right. 2 days in a row off can be a little, sometimes getting back to that, can be a challenge, but if you can stick to that schedule and it works for you, awesome. So I didn't really mean this to turn into a huge, you should practice talk, right? But it's important. We're getting into a place where we're going to start focusing a little bit less on technique for now and more on conceptual stuff. But don't stop working on your technique and your rudiments. Those are still your foundation, right? And we're going to be building off those as we go. All right. So keep practicing, and as we learn more stuff, to a certain extent, you can sub things out, right, and still just practice a half hour a day. But, you know, as we move on, practicing an hour a day might make sense if you're really serious about this instrument, right? And there might come a time where 2 hours a day might make sense. And believe it or not, there might come a time where 12 hours a day makes sense. I promise you that I spent a good chunk of my teens practicing 16 hours a day during the summer. So that's what I was talking about when I said that you will have to be obsessed with this instrument if you really want to get good at it. Okay, was that a pep talk or a downer? I'm not even sure. Why don't you let me know in the comments? I hope it was a pep talk. I mean it is a pep talk. The good news about this stuff, right, is, and here's the reality. We are hitting stuff with a stick. It is literally one of the most primitive things we could be doing. If I can get to the level I am, you can totally get to my level or maybe even greater, right? There is no limit to this instrument. If you practice, you will improve, okay? It is very democratic in that fashion. So yeah, let's hit stuff with sticks. All right, so that's gonna wrap it up for week 3 of our pad practice. I am so excited to be doing this. I hope you're excited about this. I'm happy to have you with me. Remember, comments, questions down below. If there's something you need me to clarify, please say, and I will try to do so. Make sure to like the video and subscribe, and if you want to be notified when the new lessons show up, hit that little notification bell, right? It'll help. YouTube is kind of iffy on letting people know when their subscribed videos show up, so the notification bell will help you to know when the next lesson happens. All right, so I will see you on Friday with our drum set portion of our week 3 lesson. I'm so excited. All right, so yeah, take care. Love you guys.